Okay, we are going to move on to item 10.0, which is action items. Do I hear a motion that the board adopt a resolution to provide for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $16,215,000 general obligation bonds of Lexington County School District One, South Carolina?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the board adopt a resolution to provide for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $16,215,000 general obligation bonds of Lexington County School District Number 1, South Carolina. The bonds are to be issued in 2 or more series. The bond resolution will prescribe the purposes for which the proceeds shall be expended for the payment of bonds and other matters relating thereto.
Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I believe that we have, Mr. Salters, I'm going to turn it over to you, actually, to lead the discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Do you have Mr. Mike Gallagher here this evening with Compass Municipal Advisors, our financial advisor. And so Mike is going to tag team this with me, if we can get rid of the feedback. There we go. As you recall, this is a bond sale that we do each fall. And what it does is it sets up the payments that we make on our installment purchase revenue bonds. And there's 2 payments for these. One is in the fall and one is in the spring. And I liken it to making a house payment. We borrowed some money a while back, the district did. Series 2013, that was to construct Carolina Springs Elementary and Carolina Springs Middle. Series 2015 was Red Bank Elementary and Gilbert Primary renovations, and then to build New Providence Elementary. So essentially we're making payments on those loans, if you will, for lack of a better description. Additionally, this does infuse approximately $10,030,000 of additional funding into the capital program. And I've included in your board packet a list of projects that we've listed out for you with some estimated cost targets for those projects. Those projects were lifted from our facility study, our original facility study that was done in 2017. The difference between that study and the actual 2018 referendum the board voted on, as I've said on numerous occasions, we've used that gap in the study, the $393 million versus $365, to guide our overall capital needs going forward. Additionally, there are a few projects on that list that have come up since the original study was done that have been identified as needs. And so what we propose in this use of funding is obviously the total dollar amount that you're looking at is around $12.8 million. And so you may say, well, we're only getting 10 million. Why do you have 12.8 million listed? And the reason for that is these are just cost estimates. When we actually go to market, some may come in higher, some may come in lower. And so we would strictly just fall down that list kind of in order. And if we have projects come in less than our estimates, we would roll that money forward and be able to hopefully accomplish more than the estimates are listed. So we wanted to, to have a little cushion there to add additional projects to that list. So Mr. Gallagher is here. I'll turn it over here briefly to kind of give you a synopsis of the sale itself.
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Dr. Little, it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. We have this broken down into 2 series. Part of it would be sold. It's planned to be sold on the 22nd of September. Those bonds would be issued just for a 1-year period, and they'd be paid off on March 1st of next year. All of this is being sized to keep your millage level at 90 mils. That way your taxes would not go up. Happy to say that we've been able to bring the program in below the estimates that were provided when you did the referendum. There is a small piece that, because the installment purchase revenue bonds have 2 payments a year, one on June 1st and one on December 1st, there would be a small issue next spring to make that spring payment, and that would be about April and close in early May. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
I did a little work during business school using fixed assets. So to maintain that millage even and level is not easy. So on behalf of all the taxpayers of Lexington County, I would just want to thank you for that, because obviously fluctuating millage is very frustrating and confusing to a taxpayer.
It's really good for the homeowners, and this is a district that has a lot of homeowners. And when there is a drop one year, their escrows get recalculated and their payments drop. And then if the next year it goes up, and then unfortunately, there'll be a catch-up on it. So you're exactly right, Dr. Powers.
And it, and I'd point out that we have issued the bulk of our referendum bonds at this point as well. So we've been able to maintain that millage with that larger issue amount.
Yeah, and the referendum projected millage would go up by, I forget the number, 30 or 40, but it was.
Well, it was right under 200 mils. So no, I'm sorry,
100
right under
mil.
100. My bad.
99
Yeah,
mils.
yeah. Let me
And so
100.
luckily right
Right
now,
under
we're
100.
at 90.
Yeah,
right
we
at 90.
sized it at 99. Sorry.
Yeah.
Give myself a heart attack by going to 200. So 99. So, but we stayed at 90. So that's been really good.
That's great. Thank you.
I've asked this before, but I think it's always a good point to make because new people watching it may be kind of hard to follow sometimes. When we say we're borrowing money to pay for borrowed money, eventually the price has to be paid. Can you kind of explain that process of how that occurs?
What happens is in 2006 and before, the school district entered into an installment purchase revenue bond agreement with a nonprofit corporation. So they were on behalf of issuer of the school district. And so what happens is each year you borrow the money on the general obligation side. You make that installment purchase payment. You're buying an undivided interest in those facilities. Those school facilities are under a base lease agreement where the nonprofit corporation owns them. So what you're doing is you're buying a small piece of those schools every year, and an undivided interest transfers.
And it's kind of like a lease purchase arrangement, which the state no longer allows to happen. But that's, in fact, these are, I think, some of the last ones that were done probably in the state.
There was a slew of them that were done in December of 2006, right before they were outlawed.
We're approaching the end of that program, correct?
That will end in, I believe it's 2031.
So yeah, close.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Relatively
I guess
speaking.
if we're talking like a 30-year mortgage, yeah.
Yes, relatively
not bad,
speaking.
not bad.
Yes, sir.
But the revenues that are used to pay for that, when are those revenues collected and then
Property
paid
taxes.
to pay off this?
So they're property taxes. So the general obligation bonds are paid by property taxes.
Right.
So the
Okay.
property taxes come in December, and they make those payments in either December, they come in January when the taxes are collected, and then the bonds are paid off in either February 1st or March 1st.
So essentially a short-term note to pay
Very
off the
short,
long-term.
very short term, and so it'll be very low cost of borrowing.
Gotcha. I just always like to point that out because it can be kind of hard to kind of follow sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have a question, it's probably for Mr. Salters. Can we not label this list you gave us as Exhibit A?
Sure.
Okay. Because I know it refers in here several times to Exhibit A in this document, but
in the
Exhibit A is
resolution.
one of the old ones that we usually use.
Well, actually, this would really need to be Exhibit B. Exhibit A is kind of how we get to this. And what the reason we do it this way, Ms. Garris, it's a good point, is Exhibit A, the list of improvements are renovations, additions, repairs to existing facilities of the School District One. 2, acquisition of land for future district facilities. 3, acquisition of IT equipment and school safety equipment. Or 4, building and equipping new facilities of the district. So those are broad categories so that this resolution is set up to give us flexibility to do any of those things that fit those categories. So, for example, we have this list that we have shared with you, and if something were to happen, tragically, today we had tornado warnings right at dismissal, right? If we had a number of our buildings, something happened to them and we had to do something in an emergency that may not have been covered under insurance, we could use this money, going back to the River Bluff retaining wall failure situation. If something were to happen like that, we could potentially use this money to do that and not be tied specifically to this list. Now, if we were to do something like that, we would inform the board that, hey, this is, here's the list, this is what we said we we're gonna do, now we need to divert some of those funds, and it meets one of these items on Exhibit A. So this would really need to be like Exhibit B as part of that, discussion.
So is it possible to put that language in there? I think we have a couple of other exhibits, B, C, D, I think I read in here somewhere. Would it be possible to put language in there to include this list?
So what you do when you do that is you set yourself, you lock yourself to this list. You can't say Exhibit A and this in another exhibit within the resolution, because then you lock yourself in. I mean, they're kind of conflicting with each other. You're either going to do all of this or you're going to do Exhibit A. And so this is an internal document that we're going to work with you on. And this Exhibit A sets the framework up in case we had something, a need shifted for whatever reason. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't know what we may need. And so if for some reason we had to divert funds, we have the ability to do that with the broader categories that are listed in the resolution. This document is more of a working document for the board and administration to work from and keep track of.
Right. I mean, what concerns me is that nowhere in this bond resolution paperwork are these items listed, and it refers to Exhibit A, and it says all along that the board has determined that it's in the best interest of the district to defray the cost of items shown in Exhibit A. But in Exhibit A, it could be, like you said, I understand you need flexibility. It could be renovations, additions, land, information technology, and building and equipping new facilities. But if this list is provided to the board as these are the things that we need to do, then I think somewhere in this document, that needs to be part of the document. Because right now it's saying we're giving you $10.1 million to spend as you see fit on renovations, additions, land. And there's nothing tying you to this one document that you gave the board, because it's not part of the bond resolution.
What's tying us together right now is this document, which in the past, we've worked from Exhibit A as a board and as an administration. So this document that you have before you this year is a plan that you have asked for in the past that you have not seen directly at this time. We have provided those details later on, but we provided you this document going into this conversation. So it's my recommendation that you leave it like this for flexibility to be able to identify needs as they come up. If something should change, that gives the board, that puts the board in the best position. This document is what we all will work from, and we will keep you posted on those efforts as they go. And that's how it's been structured to this point.
And Mr. Schultz, correct me if I'm wrong, but that document with those listed projects are mainly based upon feedback from our principals and such. And obviously, as the money starts to flow, I mean, their recommendations can change. So again, locking us into a prescribed list that handcuffs our principals and school leaders, I think is dangerous.
Well, I'm not asking to be handcuffed, and these are left over from 2017. So these have been set for several years now.
They're not all left over from 2017.
Right, and then, yeah, in your email.
There's some new items on there since 2017. This method that we are using right now is what we have done with these IPRB payments. You know, I can't say since they started, but in recent years, this has been the strategy that we have used. And we are, this year, for the first time, we have on the front end shown this document that is kind of a working document. We have these internally. We share these with the board. Usually we do this at a later time. But, you know, based on board feedback and input, we know that you wanted to see something up front, and that's why we provided this document. And again, I'll reiterate, these are just estimates. We haven't gone to market for any of this stuff. This is not, I don't need to see, you know, 6 months from now, oh, you're over budget because you only, you know, we put a number down to work from, okay? This is not a number that's going to show up on a Facebook page that says, well, you know, now they're over budget because we, you know, spent more than $100,000 doing a particular project, and that's what was on here. These are simply estimates based on what we're seeing in the market right now. And those of you involved in construction know the market is crazy. For our good, at least it's trending back down some, but there is some volatility. You know, and that's our strategy right now, and that's how we would recommend setting this up so that it gives you the most flexibility. Our bond counsel, Theo DeBose, has structured this document this way Mr. Gallagher has done this as well, and we've been involved with, I know you're involved with multiple districts, and so it gives you the best, it puts you in the best position to use the funds as you need to use them.
Since this is what you described, kind of like a fairly new process where we're seeing this up front, at the end of this bond sale, you know, and the end of this construction season, can we revisit at that point and just basically check them off?
Yes, sir.
You know, without locking into, so you kind of get the best of both worlds, where
So-
you're not hamstringed by you're not hamstringed by the language of your document, but at the same time, you also have a level of, you know, accountability and those kind of things. And so, you know, if we were to go back and review this at the end, maybe even before the next one, we
So-
could say we accomplished this, this, and this.
So what our plan would be is that you get an operations update every month, and I've been giving them to you, Mr. Warren is giving those to you now. You're gonna see progress on these projects, and as we check these projects off, you're gonna be made aware. This project was listed at, I keep using $100,000. This project was listed at $100,000. We completed this project for, you know, $96,000. That leaves $4,000 to roll on down into the program. You know, the other thing is, you know, we put 12.8 million in here. That's a pretty large overage. So I don't know that we'll hit those last few projects, but theoretically we could come in way under budget and run out of projects and then have money left and have to, you know, then define some other things. If this is prescribed in that resolution and this only, you have nothing else to run to use the funds. You only can spend it on those, you know, those things. So again, that's what the flexibility is for. But absolutely, the intent is to provide status updates on each of these things as they go. Now, some of these things at the end, you won't see any statuses on because we're not going to go, you know, working on the things towards the end because we got to make sure we have the funds to get to those.
So then are these prioritized?
Yes, ma'am.
They are?
Yeah, it would fall in order, you know, that you see on the sheet.
Okay, because that was,
Now, and I need to be
that's-
clear, like one of the big projects, the first project on the list is Gilbert Middle School HVAC replacement. Now that, we're not going to go in there and do that this fall. That's a next summer project, okay, because of the, you know, the upfit and involvement that it does, disruption it does to classrooms. It'll be a next summer project, but we certainly will go ahead and get the design started, get the, you know, as much pricing as we can so we have an idea of what that looks like before we get to the, you know, the actual work next summer. So everything won't hit next summer. We'll be doing some other projects along the way.
okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Board, does anyone have additional questions for Mr. Gallagher or Mr. Salters about this motion? No? All right. All right, we have a motion on the table. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Gallagher, for coming here tonight.